Welcome to this episode of ACG's GrowthTV. I'm Carolyn Vallejo, and today I'm joined by Kathy Norton, Director of Strategic Partnerships at Globalization Partners. She's here today to talk about acquiring international talent and how mid-market companies might be able to engage with global talent more easily. So, Kathy, when we talk about hiring across borders, we tend to think about large multinational conglomerates, but we are starting to see some mid-market companies embrace hiring across borders. Can you talk a little bit about that trend and whether or not you see that trend continuing in, say, the next 5 years?
Thanks, Carolyn. Yes, I think historically it's always been larger to enterprise organizations that we've seen on the global environment. I believe since the pandemic, it's changed the trajectory to include small businesses. We all had to adapt. We all had to become remote, and we had to look at how that would work for us. And I think small businesses saw that whether you're sitting next door to each other or you're in the same country or not in the same country, it didn't really matter because we now had the tools to communicate and collaborate and show a lot of production. McKinsey and Company did a post study from the pandemic with the findings that 20 to 25% of all employees in advanced economies were going to be continuing to work remote for the next, for at least 3 to 5 days a week. And that's really about 5 times more than pre-pandemic. So yes, I don't think that trend's going to change at all.
Mm-hmm. Are there any pitfalls or challenges that mid-market companies might face when they look to hire abroad? And do you have any advice for them?
Sure. I mean, what we see most often maybe is being a little ill-prepared. There's tremendous amounts of tax differences from country to country and really just business considerations in general. For example, in China and Brazil, it's a requirement to have an established entity so that you can then enroll all employees in their social security system. There's also required increases in salary yearly. So if you're not aware of these obstacles, you can see some great fines there. Mm-hmm. Additionally, in say Italy, Spain, France, and Brazil as well, there's really a requirement that all employees are also enrolled into a mandatory pension fund. What we see is sometimes organizations will move to these particular countries thinking, oh, they're similar to the US, and they're really not. Additionally, at will really doesn't exist much outside of the United States. So employment contracts that you might be using here in the United States really will not transfer well to other countries. So that's something to really look out for as well. In addition to maybe the employee handbook, moving that employee handbook to another country, those business considerations don't necessarily apply. Also, classification issues, so full-time employees versus contractors, which is an issue that we have here in the United States, but that's also applicable abroad. So these are some of the areas that I see quite frequently, not looking at those tax considerations, business considerations, and get yourself in a little bit of trouble. So you want to avoid that.
Considering all of those challenges and potential pitfalls, what are some trends that you're seeing that might actually make it easier for mid-market companies to engage with international talent?
That's a great question. I think, firstly, really getting with or having experts guide you. So you really have 2 choices. You either set up an entity yourself, or you can use what they call employer of record, or EOR is a more familiar term. So setting up yourself, you would need to then find experts in tax, legal, compliance, HR. Not to say that you can't, sometimes it takes years to set up some of these entities. It can be done. A good transition or bridge would be utilizing an EOR, employer of record, where you just utilize the experts in those fields, and they already have a legal entity set up in those locations. So if you do not have a legal entity, you can utilize them as employer of record, and you deal with the day-to-day. So there's really it's transparent in that way. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the advices, I think, getting very prepared and utilizing resources that know those countries very well.
Mm-hmm. So something to watch very closely.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for taking the time to speak with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I'm Carolyn Vallejo, and this has been ACG's GrowthTV.